My presentation is on the importance of family engagement for the Special Education Mentor-Mentee project. It's important to start with the big picture. Why family engagement in general? What positive role can the family play? Studies have been done and they validate that family engagement is one of the strongest predictors of children's school success, that the most accurate predictor of a student's school achievement is the extent to which a family encourages learning, and that parent and family involvement is a predictor of post-secondary success. Another big picture look. I'll read snippets from the PTA national standards that support parent involvement. Standard 1, families are active participants in the life of the school and feel welcome, valued, and connected to each other, to school staff, and to what students are learning and doing. Standard 2, communicating effectively. Families and school staff engage in regular, meaningful communication about student learning. Standard 3, supporting student success. Families and school staff continuously collaborate to support students' learning and healthy development. Standard 4, speaking up for every child. Families are empowered to be advocates for their own and other children. Standard 5, sharing power. Families and school staff are equal partners in decisions that affect children and families, and together inform, influence, and create policies, practices, and programs. Standard 6, collaborating with community. I think these are all good grounding principles, and for all students, whether or not they have disabilities. Good communication requires not only knowing what words to use and what messages to send, but also how to communicate in ways that encourage information flow, help people explore the situation, see different perspectives, and generate options for change. It's important to talk about how communication outside the IEP meeting for a special educator lays the ground for good partnership building within the IEP meeting. Educators should ask parents and family members early in the school year how they prefer to communicate, and by using these preferred forms of communication as much as possible, use multiple ways of communicating. Educators should listen to and provide families the opportunity to give feedback on their children's progress in a manner that is culturally appropriate for them. Teachers can promote cross-cultural communication during parent-teacher conferences using the following strategies. Begin the conversation on a personal level rather than starting with a formal progress report. Allow the personal to be mixed with a discussion of academics. Show respect for the whole family instead of paying attention to only the child who is the focus of the conference. Use indirect questions or observations rather than questions that ask for information about the child at home. For example, some parents prefer to have an older child help with homework rather than, do you or someone else help the child with their homework? Discuss the student's achievements in the context of all the students in the classroom, suggesting how the child contributes to the well-being of all. Explain the goals and expectations of the school and help parents and family members find ways in which they are comfortable supporting their children's learning. Create a sense of common purpose and caring through the use of the pronoun we rather than you and I. It is important for new educators to let parents know how they can participate in the school and classroom, and to make connections during low-stress times, like pickup and drop-off times, school functions, and extracurricular activities. They can make personal contact through handwritten notes, email, phone calls, texts, homework sheets for parents to sign, timely notification of any school incidents, especially on a Friday afternoon. Highly successful family engagement teams have cultivated the habit of listening intently to what parents say, however mundane it may seem at first, because they know this leads to other important conversations. Some barriers are more easily seen than others. Parents can mask their lack of knowledge or power or their negative experiences with a defensive shield or attitude. The value of developing trust cannot be understated. Trust is defined as an individual's or group's willingness to be vulnerable to another party based on the confidence that the latter party is benevolent, reliable, competent, honest, and open. If families are to trust teachers, they must believe that school personnel are qualified, fair, and dependable, and have their child's best interest at heart. In most cases, trust is built over time based on interactions that occur daily and with consistent behavior from both sides. If the families and educators do not have experience interacting with one another, then they may rely on the other person's reputation and on something they have in common, such as race, gender, age, religion, or upbringing. When there are few things in common between families and educators, it will take time for trust to develop. The willingness to trust each other will be based on actions and perceptions of each other's reliability, competence, honesty, and openness. Developing and maintaining trust takes frequent interactions, demonstration that students' best interests are at heart, open, honest, and respectful communication, and an understanding and acceptance of communication differences. Through effective communication, families and educators become partners in students' learning, and the families feel more empowered to be involved in their children's school. It's also important to emphasize that communication needs to happen within a culturally appropriate manner. Culture is 10,000 things, and we take our own culture for granted until we're immersed in another culture where the rules, language, expectations, and gestures are different. Striving together to recognize and understand the differences that separate people from different cultures can improve cross-cultural communication. Being skilled at cross-cultural communication involves understanding that there are different ways of communicating that reflect one's culture, acknowledging, respecting, and accommodating cultural differences in communication styles, using strategies that remove barriers to communication that result from cultural differences, and never use the child as an interpreter if the parent doesn't understand or speak English well. Now we're down to special education. Just as we open up special education presentations for parents with a big picture of Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, it makes sense to explain that to new special educators as well, and to note in the spirit of this presentation that parent and student participation in decision-making is one of the 6 principles of IDEA. Remind educators that this means that parents are required and equal members of the IEP team. The unique dynamics of special education makes communication and collaboration even more important. In keeping with the big picture, and to answer how the Federal Department of Education may keep track of parent involvement, it would be relevant for new special educators to know about the Indicator 8 of the Annual Performance Report. Percent of parents with a child receiving special education services who report that schools facilitated parent involvement as a means of improving services and results for children with disabilities. What are parent centers and why is it important to know about them? Parent Training and Information Centers, also known as PTIs or parent centers, are written into IDEA, and there is at least one parent center in every state. I am from Vermont Family Network, or VFN, Vermont's federally designated parent center. Parent centers work with families of infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities. birth through age 26. We help parents participate effectively in their children's education and development. We partner with professionals and policymakers to improve outcomes for all children with disabilities. All of VFN's family support consultants are ourselves parents of children with disabilities or special health needs. We help families to work collaboratively with professionals in the education, health, and community fields. So refer parents to VFN if they need help or resources for their child with a disability. Our programs include helpline and in-person technical assistance for parents, youth, and professionals who work with children with disabilities, parent match program, parent leadership training, training opportunities in the form of workshops, webinars, and an annual conference, funding opportunities, SIP shops, and publications on a variety of topics. Remind new special educators that in the special education process, the parent is involved in every part of the special education process. This reflects that to maximize the results for a child with a disability, every member of the team brings their unique area of expertise to contribute. A parent is an expert on their child. They are always looking beyond the IEP table, beyond this 1 year in a grade. Parents' perspective is long-term. Parents are often very nervous at IEP meetings. They are often outnumbered by professionals and must participate in dissecting their children's challenges while struggling to contain their own emotions. These steps can help ease the parent's stress. Schedule the IEP meeting at a time and place that works for the parent. Ask if an interpreter, accommodations, or other help, for example, transportation or childcare, to attend the meeting is needed. Consider holding the meeting virtually. This may be one of the few good practices learned during the pandemic, or in a different location if that is more convenient for the family. Meet the parents outside the meeting room and walk in together. Check in with the parent to make sure the parent understands the reason for the meeting. Give the parent opportunities to contribute to the agenda beforehand. Does the child want to participate? What accommodations might they need to participate? Assign an LEA or school representative who is able to make decisions and commit resources for what will be discussed at the meeting. Ensure that the professionals at the table are the right ones for team concerns. During the IEP meeting, acknowledge the child first to ground everyone. Inform parents of their rights. Engage the parent and listen without judgment. Minimize the use of jargon and acronyms. Assume good intentions and provide multiple opportunities for interactions. Think about interests versus positions. Seek for the underlying reason for what may look like a demand. Ask clarifying questions. Encourage the entire team, including the parents, to set high expectations for the child. Look for body language that may convey discomfort. Sometimes conversations may be difficult. Be prepared to be open-minded, look at things from the parent's perspective, be creative. Sometimes a break may be needed. Summarize decisions, results, tasks, parties responsible, and timelines, and schedule up follow-up meetings if necessary. Ensure that meeting minutes reflect parental concerns and input, and offer the parent a copy of the meeting minutes at the end of the meeting. Encourage the parent to review, ask questions, and/or submit corrections or changes after the meeting. Make sure follow-up actions that you are responsible for happen. Consistent follow-up helps to build trust. I will go over some specific special education meetings. Parents are usually new to the process when they attend that first evaluation meeting. Help them participate by explaining what a comprehensive evaluation is and explaining the special factors or considerations. Another meeting that parents can find challenging is the eligibility meeting. Encourage new special educators to help parents understand the evaluations, the reasoning behind the decisions, especially if the child is not found to be eligible, and to go over the options for help if the child will not be in special education. For the drafting of an IEP, it is important to communicate with the parent as to what the expectations are of the IEP meeting. While few parents would want to develop an IEP from scratch during an IEP meeting, they may not want a completely written IEP to review either. Ask how their input should be considered. Explain how the different parts of the IEP tie together, and review the Vermont Comprehensive Assessments System and how the team can use those standards. Since children will benefit when homeschool programs are coordinated, parent training and counseling should be looked at and provided if it would help the child make progress towards their IEP goals. The areas to consider providing training could be on technology, assistive technology, curriculum, or adaptations for learning. If the student has not been involved in their own IEP meetings, they should be invited as soon as transition becomes a topic. While the transition age is 16, transition planning can begin as early as 12, depending on the child or nature of the disability. Including the child could look differently based on how the child or youth would like to contribute. Remind your mentees that self-advocacy is a skill that we would like our youth with disabilities to develop. And participating in their own IEP meetings can be educational in itself. Perhaps the child or youth may need accommodations to attend. Perhaps they would like to run their meeting. It is all about them after all. Help to connect families and youth to adult service providers and supports to help the youth with a disability transition smoothly to post-secondary life. This can be challenging for new special educators as it involves non-education related partners and adult services that are, for most part, no longer a familiar area. Encourage them to include vocational rehabilitation, as VR transition counselors have a wide range of knowledge, and the VR pre-employment transition services, or pre-ETS, they provide in the school could be invaluable for the transition age youth. Having the procedural safeguards explained at the start of every meeting, however briefly, sets the standard of the parent being an equal member of the team. It is important for new special educators to view the dispute resolution process not as something that is threatening, but that it is part of the check and balance process of the system. As Act 264 is unique to Vermont, this can be a gap of knowledge for a new special educator. Take the time to explain the Act, how it works in practice, and encourage introducing families to the Act 264 process proactively and not waiting for a child to need a crisis response. Act 264 includes the provision of parent reps who can support parents through the Act 264 or coordinated services plan meetings. Parent rep support often includes pre-planning and post-meeting processing times. I will end with some resources. Please take time to check them out. Thank you for listening.